Hey, I'm Dr. Nicole. This is my assistant Luna, and this is going to be a guide to step-ups. For step-ups, we want to know what we're hitting, what we're not hitting and avoiding, how to get our glutes versus our quads, how to not get our back, how to not end up over progressing or under progressing the movement, a bunch of different options of how to do so. And the first place we're going to start is with a reasonable height step. Most times I think people start with a much too high of a surface for what they can control. They grab a bench, they grab a box, and we're already working at pretty deep ranges if we start there. So we're going to start with a shifted step up on the stool right here. Now with the shifted step up, our goal is to make sure that our step up is truly coming from the working leg and that we're not stealing the movement from anywhere that it shouldn't come from. The working leg in this situation is the front leg. We're stepping up. So what I first want you to do is grab, this stool is about mid-shin height for me. That's a much more reasonable place to start. It'll feel harder than you think it will when we're doing it well. From this step height, I'm going to put one foot on top. Now the first rule about whether or not we're hitting our glutes or our quads is going to be the space between our working leg and our supporting leg. And I'll show you why in a second. For me, I'm going to try to work my quads on this variation. So I've got my back leg, my supporting leg very close to the stool. My toes are just actually touching the edge. We'll go over the alternative variation to hit more of our glutes in a second. From this shifted step up with a quad focus, shift is in the name for a reason. We've got all of our body weight on this back leg, and now we're going to put it on top of our working leg. We're going to take that body weight and gradually shift, 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 shift it over our working leg and push up and out. I'm already shaking here. I've done a few rounds of step-ups so far on my workout. So feel free to warm up for these before you hit them or get right into them if they feel good for you. Within the shifted step up, we can focus on returning to the movement also with control, or we can just focus on the concentric movement or the lift here. I'm going to focus on the concentric since we're working on the step up component a lot more than the step down, and I want to progress and load the up piece of it rather than the return to start position. So again, shift, 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 shift. There should be a point where you come completely off your supporting leg before you push all the way up. That's what gives the shifted step up the name. And all this workload is really centered around the lower quads here. If we don't do the shift, what we usually see and why the bigger steps feel easier is I could do them all day if I do them like this, but what I'm actually doing is doing them with my back calf. So by doing the shifted component, we take the weight off the back leg. We avoid a lot of the compensations that come natural from the supporting leg and really focus on our working leg. Now, if we want to hit our glutes, we're going to take our back foot at least 1 foot length behind the step that we're using. I'm going to take it a little bit more dramatically and show you from my right leg so we can get a sense of the angles. For me to now perform my shifted step up, at the point with which I'm unloading my back leg, I'm in a much more glute dominant movement because we haven't gone so far into a knees forward or knees over toes position. This is all just physics. If I shift my knees further forward, we're going to get more quad. If I shift my hips back, we're going to get more glute. By taking that bigger step back, we're helping ourselves deepen more the hip angle to get into our starting position. This is quite a deep place to start from, and this is a lot more shallow. So it's going to help us really load those glutes. We're still going to do the same shift, 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 push all the way up, and then return however you feel comfortable. Shift, 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 push. You should feel a huge difference if you just switch rep to rep, go for a narrow stance, a lot more quads here, and then a nice big step backwards, a lot more glutes here. The body lean also is a way to decide where we're loading from, but again, it just kind of goes based on physics of where we're creating movement, where we're creating load. When I take this shifted position and I bring my chest nice and far forwards, I'm really hinging from my hip. I'm not really bringing my chest forwards arbitrarily. It's just an extension of what's happening here. And when I do that really well, I'm starting with a nice lengthened glute fiber, which means I'm going to get a lot more load through a longer muscle. If I work on my quad variation and I really keep my chest up tall, that's going to help me get a more lengthened quad, which is going to help me get deeper into that tissue. So the body position is also a way for helping us focus where the load is going. To not get our backs, which is a very common place that we tend to compensate from, we want to make sure we're not taking any shifting side to side. So a lot of what I end up seeing is that people shift forward, then shift to the side and come up, which is also another way our body's cheating around the motion. Or we end up doing this kind of dip and we really push up from our back plus our glute rather than our glute plus our leg below, leaving this area relaxed. So really making sure that as we shift forward, maybe use a mirror in front of you like I've got to the side of me here, to think about keeping your pelvis flat like a table and straight in line with you. You should feel like you're going up and down an elevator shaft. There's no shift side to side. There's no dip up and down, just forward and up. Beautiful. There's a couple ways that we can make this movement harder if it feels like it's getting a bit easy. One is to increase the step, but every inch we increase the step makes it harder. So we don't want to just make a huge jump like this step to this box unless we've really got the control for it. So from the equipment I have here, the next choice I usually make is to start on my stool and step up to my box, because the height here, if we matched it to before, is maybe around here, my lower shin. We're working our way up to a little bit higher of a surface. Feel free to use your own body as your measurement versus taking an actual inch measurement. Same thing, shift, push, versus if we work this step now back and give ourselves a little bit of space, again, a little bit more glutes there. A few different variations for further progressing it. Obviously, I could go even deeper and start really from here. We can see how much more that's going to challenge us to get the hip position and really get that shift without our back calf getting involved. We can then, of course, also really take that knee forward, try to stay super vertical as we push up to do more of a challenge at depth for a quad dominant load. When we're doing this, the question needs to become, how do we want to progress? Do we want to progress with the depth like we just were looking at here? Do we want to progress from some other metric? Sometimes we want to progress with load. We want to make it heavier. When I go to make this movement heavier, the next thing that I want to be mindful of is, am I then feeling really unstable? So if I'm feeling really unstable, I'm not going to be able to control the movement well. So I'm going to use something for my hand. I'm not going to choose to increase depth and load at the same time. We're really going to pick one, lead with that, and then start to progress further from there. So if I'm choosing load, I'm choosing load with balance, so I'm not struggling on my balance, and keeping the height the same, shift, shift, push, and then again, glute, shift, shift, push. Your weight should really just hang in your hand. Don't let any sort of rotation start to happen unless that's our goal, and try to keep the working muscle at the center of your focus. Now, of course, I can then try to progress from there. Once my 20-pound dumbbell starts to feel easy, take away my hand support, which could have been on a wall or what have you, and then do my step-ups here without the hand support. However, I've still got my hand out to the side, which gives me a little bit more balance. So if I want to progress my balance challenge even further, I'm going to not let myself put my hand out to my side, put it somewhere that's not really supporting me that much, so that I can really make sure that that balance is coming from my body, not from physics or external support. Of course, I can make the weight heavier, another form to progress it. We could also move the weight from one side to the other. When I have the weight on the same side as my working leg, I'm not playing around with so much of a horizontal component to the movement. I'm not really shifting side to side as much. I'm not challenging myself in like this kind of teapot direction. I'm just really loading the side that I'm working on. Same goes if I rack the weight up here, if I hold it at my chest, if I have something racked on my shoulders. I'm really just adding neutral load to the exercise. However, if I then make sure that my weight is away from me to the other side, we've now added a weight that wants to pull us sideways. So in order to not let ourselves dip sideways, our hip has to work harder. So if we're trying to really get a nice glute focus, taking a big depth step here, and we want to get a little bit more, no hand for balance, no hand out to stabilize us any further, and really holding that weight to the side, not letting it come in front of our working leg, so that that glute has to work extra hard to keep me neutral within this plane of movement. So we did balance challenge, weight challenge, depth challenge, glute versus quad, how to avoid using other pieces of your body to do the movement. We could also make a progression maybe for a runner to reduce the support underneath the foot. So maybe I'll still choose my load because my 20 pounds doesn't feel that heavy. I'm gonna not put my hand on anything for support because I wanna practice in a sport specific way. And as a runner, I don't have my hands on anything. So I'm gonna keep my load. I know I wanna challenge myself in a side to side plane. So I'm gonna keep my weight on the opposite side. And then I'm gonna change my foot support. So I'm gonna float my heel off the edge of the step so I have less stability even coming from my foot. And I'm still gonna load and focus on my glutes here. This really helps us to match the sport because we're not constantly conking our feet down to the floor with a running related exercise, or with a running related sport, always landing flat-footed. We're landing on different parts of our feet and pushing off. And specifically on the push off phase of the movement, we're on the ball of our foot. So getting the glutes and this kind of extension, this push feeling coming all the way from the ball of our foot up is super sport functional. So I've got my ball of my foot on the stool. I'm gonna hit my shift. I'm gonna push myself up and out, and I'm gonna make sure that I feel challenged from a stability standpoint to really get the most out of this exercise. Make sure at the top of the movement, you really feel like you've got your position before swinging back into the next one. And this will help us feel more stable within a running related sport. Naturally, my arm shot out to the side. Maybe I would do this with 15 pounds so that I'd have a better chance of really controlling all the factors that I wanted to without going to any other system to help me. Try some step ups, start low, go slow, add an intentional load, match it to your sport, and tell me how you feel.